Welcome to Pizza Talk. I'm Peter Reinhardt, and today, coming from Portland, Oregon, one of the great pizzerias and pizza restaurants really in America, Ken Forkish, the founder of Ken's Artisan Pizza, as well as Ken's Artisan Bread. In fact, Ken, author of The Great Elements of Pizza, and here's one for you. This is the pre-publication proof of flour, water, salt, and yeast, the bestseller. This is and in addition, of
very
course,
rare copy.
I've got my hard copy too. But this book. Now, this book is, I think, a publishing phenomenon. It's every time I go to Amazon to see, to check out, what my rankings are. Your book is always in the top three. The bread book is always in the top three bread books. The pizza book also is right up in the top three usually. So do you have any idea how many copies of flour, water, salt, and yeast do you think you've sold?
It's a lot. I don't have a number off the top of my head, but
you got to get them to give you a report.
No, they're there.
Yeah.
But it's actually been a life changer for me. It's been great. I had a big impact on my life, way more than I ever could have thought when I was writing it.
And I happened to be there the night that you won the IACP award for that book too. So, it's been a good run.
Yeah, it has been a good run.
Yeah.
Let's hope it continues.
Well, it will. And of course, you're in your restaurant in Portland. It's about 4:00. I don't know if you're open yet to the public, but looks like your crew is getting ready.
We start. So we're doing takeout only right now. Our first orders are picked up at 4:30. So my team should be. They're just they're stretching dough for the first orders right now, and our pivot when the COVID thing shut us down, we closed for 2 months from March 16th. Well, I think pretty much everybody across the country closed the same day. We all remember March 16th.
It's almost a year ago. It's amazing.
Oh God. Yeah, thankfully in a way. I don't want to relive the last 10 months. But we reopened on May 28th. And we're doing takeout only. Nobody comes into the shop except my crew. And we've had 2 or 3 periods where the governor allowed restaurants to open with spaced out seating inside. And then shortly after, people closed, and I never bought into that. So we've been doing takeout all along. And when people come and pick up their pizza, it's a handoff outside the window. It's quick, it's easy. I looked at like Talk and all the online ordering systems that are out there, Upserve, and none of them quite met my needs when we were evaluating. They've probably improved since then. So we just use telephone. Just like, let's just be an old school pizzeria. We take your order by the phone, you come pick it up, you pay us.
Yeah.
And nobody has to figure out a software upgrade or a system that crashed.
But you do what you got to do to, kind of keep the ball rolling. And that's what we're really hearing from so many pizza operators is everybody's finding a way to survive and to, in some ways, turn the whole thing around.
Yeah, I mean, at least we're still making pizza. I miss the conviviality of a full restaurant.
Yeah.
We on both sides of the counter. I know the customers miss that. I miss that as a diner. I love, the energy in my restaurant when because we have 55 seats plus 10 at the bar, and then in the summertime another dozen or so seats outside. And then, if it's a busy night, there could be 15 or 20 people waiting for a table. So it's a packed house full of people eating and drinking and watching our pizzaiolos toss pies. And it's fucking great, man. So I miss that.
I've been there, because I haven't been in Portland for a few years. I planned to be there last year, but of course got bumped off from the COVID thing. But what I remember about the restaurant is, what a lovely ambiance it is. It's a delightful place, and I'm sure your regulars really miss being able to come in there, and it's beautifully laid out, and it's just comfortable.
Hopefully this summer we'll be able to return to all that.
Yeah, well, it's inevitable, but that's your hope, and the plan is to return to indoor dining and everything, right?
Yeah, we want to return to that. It's just a matter of when. You can make a guess right now, but meanwhile, I've got a great team. It's the same. We're open 5 days a week. It's the same crew each day. That was sort of the necessary thing when we reopened. Is I wanted to have a small team of people that are all firmly committed to being safe. We haven't had a single incident here. The same at my bakery, and so that's worked, and I'm proud of that. We opened with a small crew, so there's, in my 2,000 square foot restaurant, there's 5 people in the kitchen every day, 5 days a week because they need a weekend, and nobody. We can still, have days off here and there, but the result has been once the same people working every day, the team gets really, really tight, and we kind of came back with. Well, none of my former staff are listening, but we came back with the A team. And so in a way, you could say, our pizza is better than it's ever been because I got my best people in the kitchen here every night. They're all getting tip income that they didn't used to get the way they do now.
True, yeah.
The model has really changed. People are still tipping well, which is great. We're really grateful for that. But instead of most of the tips going to front of house employees who work a 5-hour shift, guys who really pull the heavy weight and work 8 hours every day are now making significant tip income, and it'll have to be a different model when we reopen.
Well, when I ate there, weren't you doing also like farm to table salads and sides?
Oh yeah.
Are you still?
Yeah, our menu was we'll have that back. Right now we're doing Caesar salad and about 7 or 8 pizzas. We do meatballs. But I went back to I love meatballs, man. Look at your smile. You like meatballs too.
Well, yeah, it's funny. Meatballs are really resurging during this last year,
it's a natural fit for a pizzeria too.
Yeah.
The funny thing is, like, meatballs to me are way more sensible for pizzeria than chicken wings. And if you read the industry trade mags, it's like all these advertisements for chicken wing shit.
Right.
And I'm like, dude, how do chicken wings and pizzerias fit? Well, I guess it's okay, but yeah, meatballs. That's where it's at.
Well, I think when they made that connection, the chicken wing thing, it worked for the guys out of that one group out of Buffalo that kind of really put it out there, and it created a new category. But meatballs are such a perennial and such a deep comfort food for everybody. It was inevitable that they would come back, big time. And I think it's working out.
Well, we love meatballs, and I'm really proud of our meatballs.
That's it. Everybody's proud of their meatballs. That's it.
Yeah, no kidding.
You have a secret recipe, so to speak, or can you talk about?
We're using the recipe that I put in the Elements of Pizza.
So if you want it, it's in the book.
Yep.
That's a good tease right there. Right. That, by the way, that book is really, it really is good. You cover so many different styles of pizza. So, and of course the science, in order to do that, you really brought your skills as a bread baker into the pizza world that you came into afterwards. Can you, for those 5 or 10 people out there who don't have your books and don't know about you, can you give us a little recap of a little bit of your journey from pre-bakery before you were in this artisan category, and how you got into it and led you into pizza?
Well, I was an engineer for a long time, and my first career was 19 years in a Silicon Valley career, mostly with one company. I worked for 4 altogether, and I wasn't coding, I wasn't designing hardware or writing software. I was basically an engineer that was in the field designing networks, troubleshooting problems. I started and ran a tech support center, that kind of thing. And so I had always been accustomed to explaining technical concepts to, whether it's people in suits or technical guys across the table. And so when it came to, well, I didn't mean to bridge into writing, but it was kind of a natural bridge because I had that mindset of taking a technical concept and explaining it in layman's terms. And I know that helped me as a writer. As a baker, essentially, I took 2 years off from my last career to study and learn how to bake. I had just enough funds to do it. I wasn't wealthy, and I just basically, I felt like baking was a craft that I could learn the fundamentals of in a modest period of time, compared to, like, if I wanted to be a chef, I think that takes a lot longer. You got to know a lot more things, and baking really just spoke to my soul. And I felt like pizza was sort of the same way. They're accessible, but then to be really accomplished, a decade, 2 decades, because that's how long it takes to learn a lot of the subtleties that just happen with trial and error and experience.
Yeah. Yeah. And back then, when you were started, we had the guild existed by then, Bread Bakers Guild, which
Yes.
taught a lot of
Yeah.
of the science and craft to American bakers. But
Yeah.
when I was coming up in the bakery side, which was maybe 10, 12 years before you got into it, there was no guild, and most of us were self-taught, and we didn't have formal training, and we made so many mistakes. That was our school. It was just
Yeah.
trial and
Well,
error.
the other thing is when I was learning was late 90s. For you, it was a decade or so earlier.
Exactly.
But I think I've told you this before. Our source was books, and there weren't really that many.
No.
The first bread book I bought was yours, the Brother
Oh,
Juniper bread
oh,
book.
really?
Yeah.
Which were pretty simple recipes, and that was how simple our breads were. We knew nothing about pre-ferments and this and that, all the fermentation stuff that we learned later. But
I was just like, how's a guy with a Jewish name end up in a monastery?
yeah, well, that's you got to read the book to know.
It's in there.
Yeah, it's all in there. So, but yes, I'm so glad that it was helpful to you. And of course, I came up to Portland a lot during those when I started writing books. Portland was always one of my favorite stops to go because I would teach classes like at Sur La Table or some other places, and then get to go visit everybody's restaurants. And yours was one of them for sure. And Portland back then, when you first started, really wasn't known as a pizza city, but now I think it's really, one of America's great pizza cities. It seems to be just chock full of wonderful pizzerias and pizza restaurants.
Yeah, we don't have the quantity. We don't have the number of pizzerias that say New Haven has or New York City has, but we do have is we got some pretty high quality places doing different styles that are some unique, like Sarah Minnick over Lovely's,
Yes.
or Brian Spangler doing New Haven style pizza. His take on it, anyway. I don't really know how he would describe it. And then I'm doing, an American interpretation of mostly Neapolitan, but then we went way beyond that. So now I'm doing pizzas that are like similar to what like I take a Pauly G's pizza and I call it the Brooklyn. So we're kind of all over the map here. And actually, when we did our reboot back in May, since it's takeout pizza, I felt like a New York style pizza, like a big 18-incher with low moisture mozz would travel a lot better than a margarita would. So in addition to our standard margaritas and so forth, we're doing 18-inch pizzas now too.
Wow. Yeah. So that's a whole shift from what you were doing, when it was all
it took me 15 years before I bought my first loaf of Lomo mozz here.
Wow. Amazing. Because we were all using all fresh mozzarella. Huh?
It was all fior di latte. Now we're making our own fior di latte here.
Wow.
We don't buy it anymore.
That's nice.
We buy these really great curds and make our own cheese almost every day.
That's wonderful. So you get to do the experience of pulling the cheese.
We're still that craft pizza. Yeah, we do. And we're still that craft pizza shop. We make our own bacon. Wow. So we buy great pork belly, Landrock pork.
Oh, nice.
Cure it, then smoke it. It's not hard, So we make our own bacon. We make our own sausage, of course. That's super easy. Make our own cheese. Pickle things every now and then, this sort of stuff you can do.
Well, that's why it's called artisan.
Exactly.
Pizza. Because you bring, and that's part of what drove us, in our Pizza Quest website and in Pizza Talk. It's really not just about pizza. It's really a celebration of artisanship, and that's right in our sort of mission statement, because there's something about that, the spirit of artisanship and so many people have gone back to like making things from scratch, working with local ingredients, all the things that define this era of artisan cooking. I think is a big, and you were one of the, right in the middle of all that, and one of the early proponents, so to speak.
Yeah, I mean, half the people would pronounce it artesian when I opened in 2001.
That's right. Well, but before we leave bread, so you before you did this, you had the bakery on the other side of town. You were on the west side in northwest, right? Is that where it is?
Yeah,
Northwest?
yeah.
And that's still going. You're still making breads there?
Oh yeah, Ken's Artisan Bakery has been around since 2001, and I hope that makes it another 20 years.
How much of what you learned as you became an expert, so to speak, in bread making, have you were able to apply and transfer over to your work with pizza? And where does it show up, like in your dough?
In the well, it shows up in the dough. I mean, that's exactly it. As a bread baker, you know this yourself because you've done both bread and pizza as well. That you learn bread. That the first thing you learn about bread, if you're paying attention, is that it's a fermentation craft. I think there are some bakers, but you know that they start out with a recipe that they trust and they only ever use that recipe. But that's not really who most of us are as bakers.
Yeah.
You know, we learn how to adjust. We learn okay, this is good, but let's move the bread this way, you know?
Yeah.
Let's adjust how we do the leavening. Let's adjust the way we mix our sourdough. Let's adjust the blend of flours in our sourdough, because I use a blend of white flour and whole wheat flour, and that's a dangerous game.
Yeah.
There's a lot of fine tuning that goes with, hey, what water temperature do you feed it? How much do you carry over from the last feeding to the next feeding?
Yeah.
What's your blend of white flour versus whole wheat flour? Is it 70% hydration? Is it 100% hydration? How long after you mix it? It's just it's two ingredients. It's flour and water.
And the discussions, the discussions about how many ways in the permutations of ways you can do it are endless. And
exactly,
you know, like at Pizza Expo, where you were, I think, scheduled to be the keynote speaker at the got canceled. Hopefully you'll still get a chance to do that.
Now they want me to come back this summer, and I'm getting more confident that I'm likely enough to be vaccinated by late June.
Let's hope all of it. But you know, we do a workshop there called, you know, is 12 hours enough? Is 24 too much? You know, it's like,
yeah, right.
How long should you ferment?
The answer is always it depends.
That is exactly right. And that's the first thing we say is it depends, you know. So,
but anyway, you're asking, you know, how do I translate from being a bread guy to a pizza guy? And it's funny because the most so when I was in Naples, I met Enzo Coccia from La Notizia, and he's one of the most famous pizza makers in Naples. And I was really lucky to get some time with him. And so this is when I was writing the elements of pizza, and he was very forceful in him telling me, because he was like, who is this guy, you know? And so I explained that I'm a bread baker and I have a pizzeria. So I was kind of a bread guy and a pizza guy, right? And he kind of sussed out that, like in his take, is I'm mostly a bread guy, which kind of pisses me off because I've been a pizza guy for 15 years. Yeah, and I think I'm really good at it. And I hate being like boxed in. That's like bakeries saying, oh yeah, the French point of view is you have a bakery that it's either great in bread, but they can't be good at bread and pastry at the same time. Right. And that pisses me off too.
Yeah, right.
So I don't want any
Americans get pissed off real easily about anything the French have to say about stuff like that anyway.
Yeah.
It's like their opinions are so strongly held, and yet to us they're like ridiculous, you know. It's like,
well, I mean,
that's not true. We don't have to buy into that, you know?
It's possible to be good at more than one thing.
Yeah.
And so when I was meeting with him, he's like, pizza is not the same as bread. And he was like really forceful. And I kind of needed to hear that, because there are some things that are fundamentally different, even starting with the way the dough is mixed. You know, I'm the guy that wrote the book Flour, Water, Salt, Yeast, but the way you mix pizza dough in Naples is water, salt, yeast, and flour in that order. Right?
Yeah, interesting.
And I'm like, wait a minute, there's no autolyse. Like, they don't even know what that word is.
Yeah.
And then, you know, as bread bakers, you probably learned the same as I did, is you really push like the first fermentation, the bulk fermentation, you chop up your dough and you make your loaves and then you proof it. But the period of time for that first fermentation needs to be significant enough for all these good things to happen in the dough. So here I am talking to Enzo, and 20 minutes after they mix their dough, they're balling it up. I mean, what the fuck? Well, you know, I believe you. I'm not questioning you, but it made the point that pizza, like he said, is not the same as bread. And so I had to adjust my thinking. Even at that point, I'd been making pizza for like 10 years.
Yeah.
But it was good that he was forceful in the way that he was, because it made me adjust my thinking and, you know, kind of consider those factors. And you think about, how does pizza differ from bread? And a loaf of bread, you want usually the most volume you can get, and that's not what you're trying to do with a pizza skin, you know.
Well, it's interesting that all the dogmas that every style has, and every, you know, every national approach has to pizza are, you know, they're not necessarily laws. They're their dogmas, but I think our tendency is to want to challenge those dogmas and say, but what if we try this instead? You know, where will it lead us? Or why do we have to do it that way?
That's a very American point of view.
Yeah, I think so. And that's why I think that there's been such an explosion of creativity. Well, I know that the restaurant's about to open up to the, the lines of people, driving up. So why don't we take a little break right here? When we come back, if you wouldn't mind, maybe,
Yeah, let's do it.
back to the oven, show us what the guys are doing back there, and we'll get to see some of your pizzas.
Great. Sounds good.
All right. Fantastic. So join us in the next segment on Pizza Talk. I'm with Ken Forkish today. He's coming to us from Portland. Ken's Artisan Pizza. We'll see you in the next part. It's funny because agents don't know everything, and that's why they're an endangered species right now. People seem to be able to go right to the publishers, and
yeah, thank God I'm not giving up 15%.
That's right. That's right. So, well, welcome back to part 2. We're with Ken Forkish, and
maybe that part wasn't supposed to be recorded.
No, that's okay. We want it to be a little salty, But Ken, we were just talking about your bread book, which came out 9 years ago. Copyright 2012. But I want to read something on the back. I was thinking, what can I say to introduce you? I realized I wrote your introduction 12 years ago, 10 years ago. It says on the back of your book, Ken Forkish's story is as unique, interesting, and delicious as his famous breads and pizzas. The man abandoned his past, courageously stepped off the cliff, and followed his passion. And the result has been a gift to all of us. Great breads, fabulous pizzas, and now this beautiful book, Flour, Water, Salt, Yeast, in which he reveals all. Signed, Peter Reinhardt. So
I remember the jump off the cliff remark.
Yeah. and of course, then you followed it up with an equally great and important book, The Elements of Pizza, in which you really, broke it down, both the science and the craft. And I think that's
anyway.
And as you said earlier, the pizza makers back then and the bread makers, they were like two different schools. But now the bread baking world and the pizza world are really coming together. Pizza makers want to know what bread bakers know. Bread bakers are moving into pizza, as so there really is kind of a merger, and I think the public is the beneficiary of that. Wouldn't you say?
Oh, absolutely. I sure hope so.
Yeah. So and we can see the results of it, like right behind you. Your team is open for business now. You're making some pizzas. Yep.
We've got
try to get close to the screen and watch.
I'll give you a couple introductions. I've got
absolutely. We'd love to meet your team.
So this is Fallon and Vince.
Hey guys.
Say hi, guys. Hello. They'd say hi, but they're making pizza. They can still say hi and make pizza at the same time. I'm pointing my MacBook here, and I think I'm doing okay. So we're doing 12 and 18-inch pies. Everything on this round is 12 inches. We're going to do an 18-inch right after, so you can see how that comes out too.
Boy, did you have to make any changes is it the same dough for the 18-inch, and are there other adjustments you have to make?
We made some adjustments in the oven, but it's great. We've got such a large oven that we can get close to the fire if we want 900 degrees, or if we want 750, we can pull back and get that. But the dough is, we've got a great dough. We're using Caputo flour. It's a combination of long fermented commercial yeast, but also has sourdough in it. And so I like the texture of commercial yeasted pizza doughs, whether it's a biga or long fermented straight dough. But I love the flavor of a sourdough. The mellow, really mellow to that.
And Ken, have you always done it that way? Since you opened, have you always done it?
No, this is something I started doing a couple years ago.
So that I think that's an interesting point, because it shows the sort of that the evolution that we're always still learning and tweaking. So it sounds like that was a tweak you made. Yeah,
I ended up having to tweak my whole kitchen team because there's a lot of my leads in the kitchen, they weren't into it. So,
interesting.
So they work someplace else now.
They wouldn't follow you down that rabbit hole, huh?
Well, it was a rabbit hole, and you needed cooperation because I'm not here every instant of every day,
Yeah.
But anyway, no need to tell you the horror stories. Let me show you these pizzas while they're dressed before they go in the oven.
Yeah.
We got our mushroom pizza here. Wait a minute. There it is. Can you see mushroom?
Yep, white pizza. Yep.
Yep. And then this is our sausage pie. I've got a soppressata right here. And then that's a small version of our New York style pizza.
Now, you said, did you make your own sausage? Do you make any of the salumis like the sopressata, or you just buy that?
Nobody wants to have to go through the certification process to
Oh,
do
that's
Japanese
true.
bread
Yeah, that's a little fee. You do make your own. You do make your own bacon, though.
Yeah, we make our own bacon. That's easy, quick cure. It's all refrigerated. No issues with the health department there.
Great.
So Vince is our oven master, and he works the oven pretty much every night he's here. I'll give you a closer look.
That's a beautiful oven. Again, you were telling us earlier about it, but I don't think we got it on tape. This is a Pagnol, a French oven or French
This
deck.
is a Pagnol. It was installed in 2006, and it's about 6 feet in diameter. It's a big oven. It has a higher dome than most pizza ovens will have, but it has really intense heat radiation. So its heat mass and heat storage capability are why this makes a great pizza oven.
So it really has different baking properties than, say, a Neapolitan style oven, which would have a lower roof.
A little bit. We can still do a 90-second pie in here that's really good. Every now and then, we need to finish it elevated to get a little bit of dome heat from the top, but we don't usually have to do that. Typically, it's just hot in there, you know.
Yeah, well, I mean, the fact that it's a big oven. You had to learn how to drive this Ferrari. But what's amazing to me is that now, it's 14 years later, you haven't had to replace those stones.
No, I thought about it when we were shut down for 2 months. It would have been the perfect time. But these stones they're certainly thick enough. They've got a few warps where they've been worked real hard. But if we were to replace them with new stones, there's every place where the bricks meet, there's a little bit of settling, and you get a stick point that will tear through the pizza dough. You have to wear it down over time. So break-in period sucks.
Yeah.
Break-in period is not fun with new stones. It's much better to. We thought about it. I got a price quote. Somebody good to do it, and then I backed out and said, you know what? I think we're good. We don't need to do this.
Interesting. So
we stuck with what's working.
And
can you see the pizzas in here very well?
We can only just see the edge of them. We can't really see them yet. There we go. Now we're getting there. Yeah, they're getting pretty done, huh?
Yeah, they're getting pretty done. The dough balls are really well fermented. Let me show you. You see that guy?
Oh yeah.
And then here they are on our bench.
Spread out a little, yeah.
So to get we get some pretty extreme leoparding on our pizzas, and it's not necessarily by design intent. That's just what happens when you got really well fermented dough that makes a really high temperature.
Yeah.
It's not like Enzo Cochi calls that measles on pizza. And I respect Enzo a lot. And he's a better pizza man than I'll ever be, but I still really like it this way. I like these little bits of char on the crust for the way it tastes. I like the texture that goes along with them. I'm 100% behind the way this pizza's coming out right now. I'll show you.
It's funny that you say that about the measles, because I remember getting embarrassed in front of Raymond Calvel, the famous French baker.
Oh yeah.
When I asked him at a workshop, how do we get our baguettes to have those blisters that I love? And he like almost had a heart attack right there. He says he says those are pimples. The French are not fond of that.
It's not a good word.
Yeah.
When they come out of the oven, we put them on these. I always forget which way to turn. I'd be terrible driving a trailer hitch. But we put them on these screens, and then time to get them in the box.
I guess they're going into a box.
We box them.
So
everything's to go.
The cheese that we saw in there, that was a low moisture mutz as opposed to a fior di latte then, huh? Or do you have both?
Yeah, this one, the mushroom pizza is a combination of the two. So that has fresh mozz and lomo. This New York style pizza here is fresh mozz and lomo. We also use some smoked mozzarella, which just
nice.
Gives a great background flavor.
Yeah.
The sopressata is essentially, it's a margarita with salami on it.
Mm-hmm.
And the sausage pizza is just really fucking good.
Well,
I'm not going for shock value here. I'm just speaking honestly.
You've been making them for a long time, and it's nice that you're not tired of them. That you still love them. That you love them like your kids.
No, I used to say, like, if you were to tell the 12-year-old me that this is what I was going to do for a living, yes.
I know. I mean, that's the And I think so many people that we've talked to on this show are in the same boat. They never imagined that this is where they'd find their bliss.
Yeah, it sure beats working in corporate hell. I'll tell you that much.
Well, that's I mean, and of course Paulie G, and there's
Yeah,
a
Paulie's a great guy.
and he started in the pizza business even later than you did. Then
We had pretty similar stories. He worked at HP and left at a similar age, a little bit older, I think.
uh-huh.
How old is Paulie?
I think now he's about 65 or 68, something like that.
Yeah, so he's probably about 5 years older than me.
Yeah. So,
like
but
that.
but the same thing. I mean, I think it's this is a great phenomenon. Is this whole notion of really leaving behind the world that we were trained for to follow something that really had no certainty about it. But it was something that we had to do. It was a kind of an itch that we had to scratch.
Indeed. Owning a restaurant was never one of those things you thought about in the 70s as a viable career goal. Like it wasn't even in the conversation, or opening a pizzeria, becoming a baker. You'd be like, no, we put you through college. You need to go get a job.
Yeah, right, exactly.
And I got a lot out of those 20 years, but man, the next 20 years were a lot more fun.
Well, that's the amazing thing. Where did you grow up?
Hyattsville, Maryland, suburban DC.
DC, really? So you're East Coast guy. Uh-huh.
Yeah, University of Maryland was right in my backyard.
Oh, interesting. So it's like me. Then you weren't that far from me. I was in Philly, and again, a lot of. So, would you say that some of your memories, we'll call your food memories from your childhood, have infused themselves into the work that you do now, or some of your ideas about food now?
I have more respect for those memories now than I probably did 15 or 20 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
But I mean, the food we grew up eating in the 60s and 70s is so different. We didn't have access to or even know about good ingredients. And, good olive oil, if you could find it, was probably 3 years old on the shelf. And,
right.
I mean, nobody was going to, it wasn't in our culture.
We didn't think about the ingredients themselves as being such a, the important part. It was all more about the spices and the flavorings and this and that. But that was a huge change, a paradigm shift, really 10, 15 years later, when I guess maybe started in California and a few other places where the farm to table movement began.
Yeah, I mean, I moved to the Bay Area in 1980, right out of college, and that's when I started to have my culinary.
You were there at
I want to say awakening,
era.
But that's
yeah. I
stopped putting ketchup on my grilled salmon.
Yeah, and people were making pilgrimages to the Chez Panisse and Stars and all these great restaurants that were opening up around the city. And then all of a sudden, a city like Portland grabs a hold of that and becomes, kind of takes it to the max. And that's what I love about Portland is that it seems like there's just so much creativity and breaking through boundaries of what's possible, in the realm of food. And there's a few other cities like that, but Portland is one of my favorite for that.
Let's hope we come back. This has been destroyed in the last year.
Yeah. Well, that's remains to be seen, but I'm optimistic. I'm hopeful. I think
me too.
If anything has been proven to us, I think in the pizza sector, especially the resilience of the operators, to find ways to pivot, to find ways to, make it happen and to keep the doors open. I think maybe more than any other sector of the restaurant or hospitality field, the pizza sector has been maybe the most resilient and a great sort of tribute. Of course, pizza is an easier thing to turn into a to-go item than
pizza in a box versus fine dining is they don't translate.
Yeah. So anyway, you found a way to do it. You've got your team back there cranking out pizzas. About how many a day are you doing?
Gosh, I don't know. Let me ask. Franklin, how many pizzas a day are we making?
About 80, been 2 days, 120, 130.
You hear that? Between 80 and 130.
80 and 130 pizzas. That's that's a substantial number of pizzas, and those are all going out the door and people are picking them up themselves. You're not.
Yep. We got one right now.
Here they come.
There they go.
Well, Ken, it's been great spending time with you. Thanks so much for for taking us, into the restaurant and showing us the guys at work. A lot of times when we do these shows, we do them in the morning before operations are happening because we don't want to get in the way. But I thought it was a great idea of yours to do it,
Good.
while you're serving.
Yeah, totally. No, I'm going to show off my pizza if anybody watches this. I'm really proud of what we're doing.
Yeah, well, you should be. And of course, you're always listed. I guess if that's the best way as the lists come out, the top, the top pizzerias around the country.
Yeah, right.
You're always one of them, and there's a reason for it. And I'm just glad you're still doing it and still here with us. And
Great,
by the
thanks
way,
very much.
before we leave, you've done 2 great award-winning books. Got any plans for a third?
I do. I can't talk about it right now because the timeline is a little bit too far out.
Okay.
But I'll start making some noise in the autumn, September, October.
Going to be a long fermentation on this one, so
We'll
keep it out.
Let's hope it doesn't turn too sour.
You're right. Well, we'll circle back around with you and find out. But
right. Sounds good.
But good luck with all that. And
Thanks, Peter.
folks, thank you for joining us on Pizza Talk. We're here with Ken Forkish. If you want to, if you're in Portland, you know where to get some great pizza. Also, the books are available everywhere. If you don't already have Flour, Water, Salt, Yeast, and you're a bread baker, it's one of those, I would say maybe 5 essential bread books that everybody should have in their bread library. And then the pizza, the Elements of Pizza, is maybe again one of the 5 essential pizza books that are out there that you should have on your shelf. So thank you for writing those, and thanks for being with us today.
My pleasure. Take care.
Bye-bye.